So I already started implementing the file editor, and I'm going to continue from where I stopped. And I'm going to start by the code editor class, which is supposed to be similar to the code text editor. I think it's going to be a merge of these two classes here, because in Godot it's different. And obviously I'm not really sure what's going to happen. So I'm just going to try to develop like this and then see as I go if I need to create other classes and things like that. So Godot uses this, I think uses a composition approach between these classes here. The code edit class is the class that creates the GUI for putting the text, which is basically like the text editor. I think it inherits from text editor class as well. And then the code text editor is a class that has additional logic on top of that. The script text editor, I think it is the class responsible for managing the GDScript functionality. Then the script editor class is the one that handles the whole thing, the whole GDScript spot, and uses both the code text editor and the editor tabs things. So what I'm thinking about doing is I'm not gonna do the script editor class. I'm just gonna do this file editor. I'm basically trying to not map, but implement what they did first. But I'm gonna try to not implement it the same way, because I think that's the reason why they did it like this is because of GDScript. So I want to try to simplify first, and that's the reason why I'm only gonna do these two classes here, I think. The main one's gonna be the file editor, which is the whole component. Then the file editor is gonna use the editor sync tabs from Godot, which I'm probably gonna have to change. And I already created this class here at the beginning of the class, which is file editor tab container. Just gonna be the same functionality of tab container, but some customization on top of it. I'm gonna try to translate first everything from editor sync tabs, and then just change as I go to see how it works. But on the original one, these tabs here are for the scenes and not for the editor. The editor uses the tab container to switch between the scripts. So I'm gonna have to see like how can I achieve this. Probably just gonna copy the functionality from tab container. And for the whole editor or whole file editor components or text editor, I'm gonna use the code editor. And the code editor is gonna use the code edit, and that's the stuff that I started moving now. And I decided to do the shortcuts first as well, like the beginning of the shortcuts, which I just copied from the way that they do the editor settings. And it doesn't seem to be very hard. I think it's easier than I was thinking that it would be, but it might be kind of annoying when you have multiple different classes on the scene. But I have the beginning there of the classes, and just translated from the stuff that they did. And now I'm probably just gonna go over like the original class, and then try to see. Also created this additional debugging thing here for the GUI project, which is the project that I'm using to test these components. I'm just gonna wait to see if it's streaming. I'm gonna explain the graph there. It's not that hard as well, and I didn't need to do that, but I decided to do it anyway because it wasn't that hard. With the graph here this is basically the flow of functions from the file system doc. The moment you open the script to GDScript. So yeah, it's gonna happen through the resource loader, which uses the inspector doc. And then I think on this function here from the script editor, script editor, is going to check to see if there is the script already on the class. And if there isn't, is going to create using a function that they subscribe at some point. And that initializes the script text editor, I think, which the script editor uses. And if they already have, then it's going to call this function here, which is going to switch the tabs. Let's see if I can find. This is basically the function, I think, to switch the tabs. And the other one is on line 304. 2404. It's basically this function here. This function is going to initialize. I think this is set on the create or whatever. Yeah, register create script editor function. I think I'm gonna focus on the. It's kind of confusing because it's not the exact same thing that I'm doing there. So I think I'm gonna have to go back and forth a bunch of times. Also didn't put the name exactly the way that it is there on the file because they already have this code underscore editor. So just put the prefix in the beginning. But the name of the class, I'm gonna leave it, I think, as code editor, since they didn't have on the other one. And this is some like the minimum functionality that I implemented first. So I'm gonna run the project on with the game GUI. Oh, the problem is that I think that's not gonna work now because I removed. So based on the way that I did, and based on the way that they do it, they initialize the shortcuts on the editor node by using editor settings. The editor settings is a singleton that they created, and also it's not hard at all to understand how it works. It's just basically a singleton, and the only purpose of the functions is to cache the shortcuts that were. It's basically a cache. I think the functionality to put the shortcuts. Actually, it doesn't. That's the part that I'm not 100% sure. But I think that the classes themselves don't do anything when it comes to the events. It just allows you to cache the shortcuts and then use the cache shortcuts on the input function of nodes. So, and the way that I thought that it worked initially is that you would use the macro, and then the macro you would register the shortcuts on the input system on Godot. But I think that's not how it works. You just initialize the shortcut class, and then it allows you to use other macros and other functions on other classes to either get shortcuts that were subscribed before, or to check if there is a shortcuts that were subscribed to the class, which basically stores everything on a hash. So based on that, it allows you to put the logic on the node and subscribe the shortcuts. But here it's not gonna work now because I didn't. So this is the part that I was gonna say. Because of the way that I'm doing things, I decided to initialize the singleton on the dockable layout class. So and it was crashing the application when I didn't have the dockable layout because of the functions. They didn't check to see if the class was initialized, but then that's the reason why I changed now to see if I could solve that. And I just put some conditions there to stop them from using the hash map. Yeah, it's basically this thing here. They use this create function to create the settings, and they do this inside of the editor node constructor. So I'm doing inside of the dockable layout. And I think the dockable layout, because the way that I'm thinking about now is that the dockable layout is going to be the root of the things. So I'm initializing which I just changed the prefix. Mine is going to be BM settings. You just initialize inside of the dockable layout constructor, I think. It's basically this singleton that is on top of the file there. So I'm gonna open this from the editor and I'm gonna add the dockable layout. I was thinking before if I should, like, since I started copying one function at a time, I think I'm gonna continue to do this. The thing is that I thought about copying everything because, like, there isn't much that is specific to the editor on this class specifically, I think. And obviously it's easier to copy everything, but I think that there's some stuff some stuff here that I'm not really sure if I'm gonna need, or like what is the point of having these things. So maybe a good idea would be to comment this stuff out first and then see how it changes the editor and maybe clarify. But I think the connection between this, maybe we should search for a menu. It's just gonna be instead of the script text editor that is used. It's gonna be script text editor, I think. Because this. Let's see. Hmm. So it probably happens there inside of the function that subscribes this at some point. Yeah, so it subscribes here, I think, on the script editor. Script text editor, register editor. I don't know why. There are a couple of places where they do this, and I don't understand very well. I think that each place is kind of different. The reason why they create these functions to initialize the classes like this, it's kind of weird to me. Also, inside of the editor now is gonna use this. So there's two different types of editor, text editor, and script text editor. And when it calls this, it's gonna run the other one. So when it calls this, subscribes here. So this is gonna be a singleton. It's gonna it's gonna get the script from here. This is the one that is going to be called from the file system doc on the flow there that I showed there, I think. So I think that's basically how it works. This one is a singleton. Then the other one, you register the creation function for the other class on the editor's node or editor node, and then on the functions here is gonna use the other function that was subscribed, I think. Might have to go back to I delete this project and create another project with the same name. Because now it's showing all these annoying messages because of the add-on that I put here to study the layout from the plugin or the add-on, the dockable layout add-on. So, and it's very annoying to have the error messages here. So the shift and up for selection is already implemented on the code edit, I think. But the out, down, up and down to move the lines is done here, these shortcuts here. So they basically use a mask and they use this. So this is the class that allows you to put the max, or not allows you, but has the masks, you know. And then the key has the key. Then you use the bitwise OR to mask them. And it only works based on the, so like this doesn't do anything special as far as I understand now. You're just gonna put the shortcuts on this class, on the BM settings. This is, if it doesn't have the singleton, it's just gonna return the shortcuts. But yeah, it's gonna put here, I think. And then this is like the path, it's kind of like a tree path for shortcuts. And it basically just creates this resource here, and then it puts on the map on the class. And because it puts here, it allows you to use the other macro to put the logic here. And I thought that the initial function there would solve already. Like, not would solve, but you would register the keywords or the key binding on the Godot's input system directly, but it looks like it doesn't do anything. And I didn't change, the only thing that I changed on this class is the prefix from the editor stuff, and I basically copy, I think I removed a bunch of stuff from the editor settings as well, but when it comes to the shortcuts, I basically copy the functions and change the prefix. And put some additional guards on the functions. so that it doesn't crash when it doesn't have the settings. I still didn't study these functions. They're gonna use the text editor is gonna be the code edit class, which has the functionality for implementing this stuff here, the components. Not sure what's the best way to go about doing this. It's kind of hard because I'm not really sure about the. It's obviously going to be very different because I'm going to have to support a bunch of different languages. And I think that because of that, the whole system, the way that I'm thinking about, is going to be different. So that's when it starts getting complicated because it's more about the design that gets hard to decide. That's the reason why I comments out these functions here are the signals, and I also commented out the some part of this that relies, I think, is on the inputs that relies on another class that they have on the same file, which is this find replace bar, which I imagine is something like this here. So maybe I should see if they have Control F. Yeah, so I think that's gonna be this thing here. So probably one good idea is to search for the mask. So the pop-up also has some function, some logic. I think it's a function that allows you to. I still haven't studied, but I think it just allows you to bind or. So I guess I'm gonna look at this now. There's this macro here. She puts. I think it just puts the shortcut on the item from the menu. Yeah, the problem is to understand this, I have to spend a lot more time on the class, I think. It's when this happens. This is not the one that subscribes the shortcut on the settings. We're just putting the shortcuts on the item of the menu. Yeah, it's whatever. Not gonna spend time on this now. And this is the one that subscribes the shortcuts. Let's see. This. Yeah. Oh, it should be on the callback function, I think. If I can't find here. Yeah, here, and then search find. So it's just gonna use this. So I assume that this is what happens when you click the. I'm gonna put a breakpoint here. When you put Ctrl F after selecting the script. This code editor here is the class that I was seeing there, I think. Yeah, code text editor. And it's gonna call the function from that class. Yeah, so he's using this find the replace bar. So this is the class that is gonna have the pop-up there. Which obviously makes sense, so it is what I said there basically. So the thing that I was thinking about is that like I don't see, at least for now, a very big reason to change anything about this class. But the thing is, I'm not really sure if I should include the header. I think that I probably shouldn't, to just use the exact same class. I think I shouldn't, because then this class is coupled with the other one. Then if I want to change something, I can't do it. And I think the logic's gonna be. That's the thing. At least like here, it doesn't seem that there might be some stuff that is not obvious. From what I'm seeing here, it doesn't seem that it has anything that is specific to GDScript. Because I think it's just searching through the text using the string classes. So that class there is going to be this bar here, I think. Search for match case. Yeah, so this is the button there. I do. This is one of the things that I was thinking about that I have to implement because I use this all the time. And I think that this style here might be better. It's probably better than this one, I think. It's more visible on the file. I'm not sure if it's worth implementing. I think the reason why they did here probably is because it's easier to implement, I think. But maybe like if you implement as a pop-up, it should be, because the problem is to not mess up the layout of the code's edit class, and mess up the layout of the tag. So I think that's, if I implement as a pop-up, it should be possible to do it here on the. But then I was thinking about the name. So I could put a prefix there. I think find replace bar is a good name. Obviously, like it's short and it's pretty obvious what is supposed to do. But I have to choose a different name. So maybe just put the prefix in the beginning. Oh, these functions here, I didn't understand the beginning, but now I think I get it. It's just the arrows here. So it's just gonna go to the next reference or the previous. I didn't understand the beginning because I saw them on the other class, I think. Or maybe it was on this one, but I think the other one has search next and previous as well. The other ones are probably just a wrapper for this one, so they probably call. Let me see if I can figure out. I wanna see, wanna understand what is this status bar. I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT. So I think I copy this just to stop the errors. Oh, the other annoying thing is gonna be the code completion. I think I understand how it works now. It's basically the function that, I think it's one of these functions here. I think it is one that they put patterns, that they match patterns, and then based on the patterns they create the items just to show on the menu. And the code edit has the functionality to display the pop-up. So I think this is like what prefix you want, what prefixes you want to trigger the pop-up for the completion. And then I think here is going to be, oh, this is probably subscribes, and then here is the signal, I think. So yeah, once these are typed probably, the code edit is gonna have a signal that is gonna emit, which is probably gonna be this one. That's, they have this callback function, which is gonna create a pop-up to determine what shows up there. But this is gonna be very complicated, I think, on my stuff, and I'm not really sure how I'm gonna do it. Because obviously, so this, I think, like, it goes back to what I was saying, which is the part that is actually very hard. And the reason why I'm not just like doing everything now, because it's kind of hard to think on how is going to, what is the best design to incorporate several different languages. Because maybe I should put other classes here. On this one, I put this language support here because of a ChatGPT suggestion. But I'm not really sure about it as well. So maybe what I should do is initialize the language supports on the code editor, and then I should implement functions on the language support that the match based on the file type. Yeah, I think that this is another thing that the Godot stuff doesn't have, because I think that they differentiate based on the class hierarchy and the resource loader, what kind of resource it is. And then depending on which kind of resource it is, it's going to either initialize the GDScript classes or the C# classes. So, and I think that's better to, I'm probably going to have to change the FS view as well, to, which is the class that I have, which is basically very similar to the file system doc. I just got it from file system doc and then I just changed a bunch of stuff. But I'm going to have to put the logic on that class as well to differentiate between different files extensions with the icons. But I think the logic on this one is going to be separate from the other one, I think. So I don't think I need to do that one now. But here, I'm probably going to do it based on I'm going to see how to get the extension based using the classes, the dir access class, the file access, probably going to be file access, obviously. And then based on the extension, I can create a function that matches there's a bunch of if else. Oh, so this is probably going to be this button here, I think. So the status bar is probably this bar on top of the find and replace. Yeah, so it's always here, so it's independent. So I think that's the status bar here. I'm gonna comment, yo, thanks for following. I'm gonna comment this out, and I'm going to, yeah, the problem is, I think this is the reason why I didn't do this before, is that usually when you comment one thing out, it's gonna have a bunch of other stuff that depends on it. And, but I think so I'm gonna search for all the references there. I think I don't need this status bar. Yeah, I think it doesn't make sense. And the main thing that I need is the find and replace. I'm also trying to go based on what I use the most, and everything else I want to remove, obviously. So I think that but I've been thinking about like whether or not I can put other things that might be interesting to have. And I do think I can put them, but it's gonna be like later. So I think for now, what I should do is just the tab switching is gonna be like the other class is gonna be harder, I think. So I should probably, so maybe I'm gonna write down here to, I think I'm gonna write down based on the constructor, what do I need. Also, I should find I think it's linting, not sure if it's linting. This is gonna be hard because it's gonna be on the other classes, I think. That's the part that starts getting confusing. But I do remember there's some stuff here. This kind of stuff, if there isn't already on the class that I'm gonna use, the code edit class, the functionality, then I think I have to implement on the language support class. I think it makes more sense. So I'm gonna go over on the constructor to see. So this one, yeah, these are the functions I think that I was talking about. There was another one, I think. That's for auto putting braces automatically or closing brackets. I guess auto pair. I think this is the one. So maybe he uses these ones. Assault auto brace completion. I think this is the one. So I have to opener. This is basically the editor settings. So I use the same class and they just subscribe everything there. So this is another question whether or not I should create the settings now. Because I think that's I don't, yeah, maybe. And for this kinds of things, I think probably I should create the settings. But it's kind of hard to think about this because of the nature of the way that I'm doing things there. I think that, yeah, and maybe it's another, yeah, I should put probably as another option on the dockable layout because that way it follows the same patterns as the other ones, so I can compose different layouts with different settings. And but maybe I think that the settings have to be coupled to the scene. It makes more sense, I think. Yeah, but it could be a function. I think it could be a member variable on a dockable layout that I just set, and then I check to see if it has it. Or when I set the variable, I run the, or I put the settings on the, but then how do, yeah, I think that the question is like how to create a structure with all the settings. I think I can put them on a, I can create a function and put them on a vector and just save them. So I'm thinking, because I'm already gonna initialize the BM settings singleton instead of the dockable layout. But I think that's probably better to create the settings for each thing outside of the dockable layout because it's supposed to be like it makes more sense to create the settings for specific things. Yeah. So I could create a hash map I could create a function that has a hash map, and it just puts all the settings inside of the function. Then, or inside of the hash map. Then I create a function on the document layout that accepts the hash map, and that just loops over and sets everything on the settings. It shouldn't be hard to do, I think. So maybe we should do this now. So the main thing that I'm thinking about is like where to put this. If I should put it on the modules, because I think it's gonna be specific to each thing. So I think I need to put together with this other stuff here. I have the layouts here, but I think that it probably doesn't make sense to put. Maybe I should put inside of this stuff here. Not really sure. Like this, I did this because I thought that I would do it things in a different way. But now that everything's more clear, I think that it probably like there isn't gonna be a lot of code for composition. Because the functions are gonna be mainly to connect classes on the dockable layout. To connect classes, themes, and the other functions are gonna be inside of the dockable layout, I think. It's just gonna be composing different classes. So I think that's unlikely that I'm gonna have a lot of code on these functions here. And that's the reason why I did this thing in the first place. And this stuff as well, I'll probably have to not remove. I think I'm gonna leave it here, but I'm not gonna use probably because this it was the other thing I was creating as functions here. But now I think the way that I'm doing makes a lot more sense, where I create the functions here. Each layout is gonna be like basically the same thing. This is where I'm creating the settings here. And also, I didn't think I don't think I talked about this before, but I ended up doing the configuration as well here, which is not very hard to do. Just the config layout, and then you cache the states of the classes, the split containers and tab containers, and then you just restore the states. It's not very hard to implement. So the main question is where to put this. We'll put here. I'm just gonna put instead of this thing here. So it's probably gonna be things settings. Not even sure if I need to do this right now, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna be very hard. So I'm gonna do it now. Because the main thing, the main reason why it might be a good idea to do this now is because of the functions that I saw there. This function here is gonna use this to update all these variables, and these are probably the things that create the highlighting on the editor for the keywords. But I think that this is gonna be more complicated as well because of the patterns. So I think the main thing I'm gonna have to study a lot because I don't understand. Also, this is a good thing to write down. I was thinking about this as well, caret type, because of this thing on Vim. On when you're using VS Code, that's when you press I, it changes the caret. So I'm gonna try to implement this as well. Oh, this is another thing I was thinking about. So actually, maybe I could put this on the. I think that the functions are not gonna be very big, but maybe they will. So I was thinking about like creating a function that it just creates all the settings for the specific things. Maybe I should create a folder, actually, like inside of this thing here for the settings. It depends on how big I think it's gonna be. So I was thinking about creating a function that creates the settings for Vim, for example, and then another one that creates for VS Code and stuff like that. And then when the text editor has the focus, I just implement I implement all the settings based on whether or not the editor has focus. Implement on the inputs. So I can create functions on this class here that checks that both sets the Vim settings in the constructor by using this other calling the function basically. And then on the inputs, I use another function to process maybe accept the input as an argument. And then I just process based on whether or not, like if it has focus, I call the function. And if it has focus and if the Vim setting is on, I put this stuff there. But what might be like a lot more difficult, and this is kind of the problem, is that the functionality might depend on the language. And I think that I'm not really sure. I think that probably for Vim is not like that because it's always the same stuff. But maybe VS Code is. So I think it's unlikely that's going to be dependent on the language. And I do think that I can do it like this. So the question is whether or not you put this stuff inside of or create another folder. So I can create another folder and then put the files that I just created for the settings and then put the functions inside of this as well. And I think probably this is the best idea. And then the question is like, what is the best way to connect? I think I can create a function on but actually it should be like parts of so because it should be part of the code editor, I think it's better to create them on separate files because I'm probably going to put them directly on the editor. It doesn't make sense to put them on the other one. I think for that reason, it might be better to just create a folder so it's easier to see there. And the thing is, I already have, and maybe actually I should put like together with the editor stuff. I was thinking about doing there because of the scenes, but since I already have this folder here, it might be better to put here. Because it's gonna be like from the module that I have. So I think it might make sense. Even though I use I think I'm gonna put this stuff here. So put it here. And then I'm gonna I'm gonna create other files for the Vim stuff as well. It should be based on so I think the function should be based on the name of the scene. Makes more sense. Now for the hash map, I think it's probably better to, as because it uses all this stuff, I think it's better to include current templates. Oh, that's hash map. Maybe get. Either get or create ID settings. I use a string name. I think it makes more sense to put string name. A string name is usually used for strings that are short. So I just put string there because I saw that the other one uses a string. Like the macro uses the string class. But since the other one uses the string name, yeah, but I guess it doesn't matter because I'm gonna use the other ones anyway. So maybe it's better to just leave as string. because I'm gonna call the, so it doesn't have to convert an additional time. Just gonna call this from the other thing. And now, let me think. So the other parts is should do on the dock layout. I'm gonna spend more time on the trying to figure out where is this used, or where is this called from. Oh, this thing is interesting as well because this is probably the minimap that shows on the top there. Oh, I was gonna open the editor to see. Initially, I was gonna open the editor to see a value of one of the settings of some of the stuff that I was doing there. I think it's because of the to close the brackets automatically. That's why I was looking to this function. I forgot to see the name. I think I closed. Yeah. Oh, it was here. So I was gonna see this value. That's what I'm gonna do now. I wanna see if this is true. Yeah, I think that it's probably true because on the editor it opens. So I'm just gonna put this on the constructor now of my stuff. Because obviously I think that this is good to have. But I think I should look into the. I should copy the function and then just put it as a function. I want to understand why they are using a function here and not putting this inside of the constructor. So I think that's what I have to do first. I just wanted to make sure that this is the value, or this is the function that is gonna allow, or is gonna, yeah, allow the editor for creating the closing brackets automatically. So I'll be right back. Yeah, so it is on. Obviously, it means that if I turn false, so now it doesn't create. Yeah, so it is that setting. So it does call on the constructor. And the problem is that I don't have the settings there, obviously. So now is the question. I think I should probably implement the functions and then implement the settings on the dockable layout from outside of the scene. Let's search. Hmm. So here it is. I'm just realizing that obviously based on this, it makes more sense to put the functions inside of the settings already. Yeah, but actually it kind of doesn't, because then like it couples the class with the things, which is not very good. Yeah, I think this way is probably the way that I'm thinking about doing now. So create the functions outside, the functions return a hash map, then you set the hash map on the dockable layout. The dockable layout uses the settings, loops over the hash map, and sus everything. 'Cause the way that they did here makes sense because they only have the editor scene. So like the only thing that I'm wondering is whether or not is I still think it's worth it to have the settings though, the BM settings, because just more like it's just easier to cache everything on the settings. So yeah, I think this way is probably the best way. So I'm gonna write down the name of this so I can copy everything. The values, I'm probably gonna change the names. Everything's probably better to implement this now. And then just put, because I was thinking about putting actual values there instead of having the path here. But I think it probably makes sense to just use this. I'm just gonna change the initial thing here, I think. Just put code editor instead of text editor. And put the same values. I will not have to change one by one, I think. Because even if I put this one, it's not gonna do anything. I guess I could put in the beginning here. Like this. Yeah. There we go. Hmm. I think this is different than the one that I have there. So maybe they didn't copy function correctly. Oh, it is the same. I was confusing the def, I think. Yeah. Because for defining is this one. In a sense, yeah. Hmm. Maybe I should put in separate files. Because I was just thinking about now that I'm going to copy the other one. That it makes sense to create another function, just separate everything into functions for their specific container. Like the classes, the settings are gonna be based on the class. So I was thinking that it makes sense to put the first name as the name of the class, and then I can create a function that just formats the string based on the name of the class when I create. But now I'm trying to think that if there is a better way to do it, because like maybe it doesn't make sense to create as a one function to create everything. Maybe it makes sense to create based on the classes. Yeah, I think it might not make sense to create a function because it's always gonna be coupled. The settings are gonna always gonna be coupled to the class that's gonna use them. And it doesn't make sense to use the settings from one class into another if we're not gonna use the class. So maybe this is garbage, so like it's not necessary. The only thing is the Vim. The main benefits is that you wouldn't crowd the logic for the class with a bunch of settings stuff. For that reason, it might be good, but maybe it's not worth it because of that. I have to go value by value there. Should copy everything. Uh, Oh no, it's from the. Hmm. actually it does make sense to create a function outside. And it makes sense because of the way that you're gonna. I don't think I'm gonna do this like anytime soon, but obviously based on the same way that the editor works, where you have the editor settings options on the menu, it makes sense to have everything on one place because then you can update from that place. So I think it makes sense to set everything on a function separately. As here you're just getting the settings, not setting the settings. Yeah, because here it gets the value and then you can set based on. So yeah, the functions are going to be the default values for each class. And then I can make everything based on the singleton for displaying the settings. The only question is this thing about the nodes. I think that that's the reason why I was thinking it's not so much to like use the settings of one component into a thing that doesn't have a component. You should be able to reuse the settings, obviously. So I think it makes a lot more sense. I'm gonna have both functions that are have. So maybe I should create just another file, and then I put the other file I put functions that have the settings for each component for each class. Put the same name of the class, but with the uh, snake case formats. I think that's probably the best idea, because then it's a lot more clear what each one is, and then this one is just gonna be composing the other functions. So the other functions receive a hash map, and then they populate the hash map. Now I'm thinking about whether or not it makes sense to put the prefix stuff to make the first path of each setting to be the class or something like that. Because then obviously it's a lot easier to do everything, to organize later. But then it might be annoying to get the type. Maybe I should create a class as well, so I don't populate the global space with the names of these functions. I think it's probably not gonna be necessary. Because if you create another class, then you need to use memnew to initialize kind of annoying. I think it's probably not necessary. I'm just gonna leave it as functions. I'm just gonna have the same pattern. So the beginning name of the function is just gonna be the name of the class in camel case, and then the end is gonna be settings. Then on this one I use the other one. And I can compose the settings depending which classes are gonna be. The only thing I'm not sure is the names. So like I'm thinking that like maybe I could do something with the type. I know that like something based on the name and the type to create like navigate the tree, and then for each class you check to see if there is a setting based on the type of the class. Maybe we should do that instead. Oh, actually, it's gonna be harder, I think. Yeah, I think I need to think. Yeah, I need to think about a different way because the issue is for saving the information. Because I'm building the scene on a different time than I'm running. So if I do things like this, it's not gonna cache on the. Like it's gonna work for building the scene, but it's not gonna cache on the settings. But I think that's. I'm pretty sure that the settings, the original one, has some stuff for saving because it is a resource here. So I should look into this, I think. And I should probably. Oh, but I think that it is gonna be on the editor, yeah. It is here. I think on the notification they call save. So on the destroy, and there's a couple of parts of the cycle. So it's on the class already. And I think this is gonna create. So one way, because I already ran, I'm gonna look into the folder that Godot caches everything to see if I have the file. To see if it's saving. Yeah, so it looks like it did save. Oh, it's just gonna try to open with VS Code. Yeah, I think it's saved like this because I don't have any settings there. So now to check. Yeah, but maybe this is gonna work for because then it caches everything. I'm gonna be building the scene on C++, and then I set the settings in the beginning. Then when the BM settings is gonna be destroyed, it's gonna cache everything on on the file, and then the next time that the thing runs, it's gonna load the settings from the file. I think that's how it works. So this is the config file there. And so loads here. If it doesn't have, it's gonna start here. Doesn't have here. So it's gonna be on the this one. So maybe it's calling that on the. I think I did put on the dockable layouts. Yeah, here. So when the destructor of the dockable layout runs, it's gonna call this, which is gonna save the settings. Yeah, I'm gonna. So I'm gonna look for the file that the editor saves to see what are these values here, to see if I need to put them there on the stuff that I have. I think they are here. The thing is, I'm not really sure. I should just look into the save function. Oh, is the one that initializes that has the path. That's great. Editor settings. So maybe it is on the app data. Oh, it's here. I went over this path some time ago, but I don't remember really well. It doesn't look like house here. Let's try this one. Maybe it's gonna be on the app data. They're here or on the roaming. Yeah, editor settings. Yeah, so it doesn't look like it saves. It's probably not that important to have there. Just some additional option you could put or something like this. And the thing is, there's so many ways to do this. I'm thinking now, if I, instead of setting the classes, setting the stuff here, I can create something that's on each node is going to, like I can put the settings, can put a function that's to initialize the settings and then it traverse the tree instead of setting. Traverse the tree, check to see if the node has the variable or whatever. And then if it has, it calls the function and then it sets on the node directly the value. Because it looks like the singleton here is just gonna get the value from the node, from the object class. It's basically this thing here. So it saves on the metadata, I think on the node. So I'm not really sure if I should just do the simple thing there, or like try to think about something else that might be better. The problem is once you start with one approach, it becomes kind of annoying to change later. And those are usually the more annoying things to think about. I think I'm just gonna do this way here because it's simpler. So I'm gonna get the values on the editor. I'm gonna paste there, I'm gonna test to see if this works. I still need to have the function. So the function here is going to get the values and the other one's gonna set. So I think I need to go manually over the settings on the editor and then just set for each one. So basically go over all the places here. Because I need to put all these values there, just set. I'm just thinking now, like it's kind of is again the same stuff that is hard to think about. That if I put all the functions here, then it's gonna be too much. Like it's gonna be every time that I wanna create any scene, there's gonna be a bunch of additional stuff that is not related to the scene. So usually on other parts of the engine, the way that they do it is the modules is one example. They use the build system to set up macros, and then they just they define the macro as true if the thing is gonna be used. So on the modules is like that. But I'm not really sure if it's worth to go over like all these steps to implement, because then like the file would be generated at build time, and then it would be based on the whether or not the I think I would generate just the macros to I think it's probably not worth it to do this now. Because here I think I'm gonna have to include this file here on this thing there. And then I call the file, pass another on the dockable layouts. Yeah, it's probably better to just do it this way now, because it's one of this. I think this is the kind of a thing that is like a micro optimization. It's not worth it to, and I don't think it's gonna have a massive impact to have all the functions. So the only downside is that it's probably gonna be very annoying later if I want to change this. Like the more code that I have for all the functions for all the scenes, but I think that is unlikely. The scale of the scenes files is not gonna be very large because it's gonna be just composition based on the classes. So because they are decoupled, I think that it doesn't matter that much. So I'm gonna refactor this one, and then the other one just stays the same because it's not gonna be, it's just used indirectly through the sync files. Now I have to create a function on dockable layout that loops over the settings. I'll copy the errors from the VM settings. And now I think so. I have to see how they. I think on the editor they use the editor def macro. I'm gonna look for a search on the editor node. Codes underscore. Hmm. Actually, I think it can be void. The other ones are void. On this one, I created another thing in the beginning there, just for now, because of the scale. On the other classes, I just deleted this, but then I kind of regret it because I'm probably going to implement this at some point. I think that I should put this on another file, but then it's kind of hard to know where because there isn't like any place that is kind of centralized that I'm gonna use on all scenes, I think. The only places are the ones that I'm using to create the scene, but they are not gonna be on the scene runtime. So like there isn't any class. Actually, the dockable layouts. Now that I think about it, so maybe I should put this on the dockable layout. I'm gonna see. So I'm gonna try to compile first. Once I got this to compile, I'm gonna move this to the dockable layouts, and I just use this value because I think that's all that they do on the editor. Actually, I have to see how they change this. But I guess they're gonna use this static variable. So they use a class on the editor that has this value, and then they're probably gonna use some functions on that class to on other parts of the things, or yeah, other parts of the nodes. They're gonna use the class that sets this to change the value and make the logic of the classes dependent on the value. So it changes the size of each thing. I think it's Singiri. Maybe. Yeah. Oh, it probably went to the wrong spots there. I was looking to this. Yeah. So I put here. I'm gonna have to initialize these classes as well. I just put one setting there just to check, just see if it's working. Then obviously I'm gonna put the other ones. I think I'm not gonna think too much about the pattern of the name. Actually, I shouldn't change here. So I'm gonna change here to match the one that I have on the class there. Like Yeah, I think the thing for making the pattern is that's more like it's easier to set up on the classes, I think, to get the value. Like I could make it based on the name of the class and the name of the variable, because I think that's mainly the thing that is gonna be settings are gonna be used for. So you're gonna have variables instead of classes that are gonna depend on the settings. So it's always gonna be a class and a variable. So if you made the pattern, but the problem is that, yeah, but actually each class is gonna be unique. So but like by definition it's gonna be unique the name if I put like this. So I think I could create a function on this file here that formats the value, gets the type of the class. Hmm. I'm gonna move this to the dockable layout. And the downside of the moving this is that like, yeah, but I guess it makes sense. So the problem is, what if I wanna have a scene that doesn't have for whatever reason, then like the class is gonna break. That's the issue. And on the editor, it makes sense because all the classes are gonna be parts of the editor node. So this has a, I guess I can just get from there. So this is the class that they use, and they keep the value here. See if I can find the sat scale. It's based on this. And there is on project manager as well. I think that they mainly use this on the get minimum size. Hmm. Like I wanna avoid putting if I move this to the dockable layout, then I'm gonna probably have to put a warning or something on each time, or I create a variable inside of this class as a default, and then I just make it equal to the other one, and then just sets a warning in case it doesn't have the scale. Because by putting on the dockable layout, it forces me to always use the dockable layout for this class, which I think it is going to be the case, but I'm not really sure if it is a good idea to do this, no? And the other thing is the name here as well. Those are the main things that I'm thinking about. Oh, I guess I can go back to this now. Oh, this is another thing. Alright, so I'm gonna go back to this. I think if it doesn't, you're just gonna return an empty variant if it doesn't have anything. I'm not sure if it's gonna break. I think there. Oh, this comes from C++, probably. Actually, this one I think is better to leave because it is a setting specific to the editor. And I'm not gonna do this now. It's this font size here. There's so many questions. The name thing, I think it kind of does matter because it would improve. Like if there was an easy way, if I could snap my fingers and have an easy way to make this pattern here based on the name of the class and name of that variable, I do think that this is better because then it ensures that, like not ensures, but it decreases the chances of having errors significantly. Because obviously I can create a function here that based on the name, because as when I'm gonna create the function, I'm gonna know for which class I'm gonna create the function for. So based on this, I can get the type of the class using class DB, I think. And then I can maybe I can get the variables using the functions. Or I just initialize an instance of the class inside of the function here. But for the type, I think it's still better to get. Actually, you can get from the class because it's on the macro. So when you use the GD class macro, is going to put the. I think it's going to be get class. Now let me see the pattern first here. So it is the same. Yeah. Yeah. So this function is here. Right, it's basically this one. So this one allows you to get a type as a string of the class. And this is from the GD class macro that all the classes use in their declaration to register to class DB. So I can initialize the class and I can get this, I can call this. Maybe this is a better approach. So like the thing is that it's kind of hard to decide because there's so many variations of stuff that I think I can potentially do because there's so many ways to like put things together. And I'm not really sure like how it's gonna evolve. I think one of the main ways that I'm thinking about is because it seems that the settings here is just gonna set the values on the object class. So like this is the purpose of having this singleton. So now this is the stuff that I'm contemplating now, like whether or not it makes sense to use the singleton and it doesn't Why not put something on the object class itself? Maybe that's a better approach. And then you just use the functions on the object class instead of the singleton. Because then it allows you to put... Actually, this might be the solution. Because then I use the pattern on the object class function. I think I'm gonna do this. So I put the function on the object class. I'm just gonna think about whether or not there might be any issues with this. Then like I think I'm gonna comment out the macros from this singleton. And I'm gonna leave the singleton for the shortcuts to cache the shortcuts. And the settings I'm gonna do on the object class. But then like how would you change the settings? That's the question. But I guess you would change just by calling the functions on the object. Makes more sense. Yeah, so I don't understand why they did it like this now that I think about it. There must be a way, there must be a reason, I think, to use the singleton. Because the initial thing that I thought is like the reason might be that if you create the singleton, you create the settings only once, and then you don't run the risk of creating multiple settings that's kind of useless because you're centralizing everything on the same thing. But the settings are going to be specific to each class anyway, so I do think that it makes more sense, and you're going to have the access on the object. Like because you can create, so I guess I can look into the way that they do the settings menu there. Maybe that's a good idea to do now. I think that these kinds of things are worth it to think about now, because even though that wasn't my plan now, like the thing that I'm trying to do is to convert the class, but I think that is gonna be annoying later if I don't do this now, because I'm just gonna put more and more stuff that is gonna be dependent, and then it's just gonna be harder to redo everything. That's the reason why I did the shortcuts now as well. So, and I think this is very relevant to this class specifically, because the text editor obviously is going to rely heavily on settings and shortcuts. So I think it is worth it to focus on this now. And the rest of the stuff, it doesn't seem like the main. I think that after I do the simple stuff on this class, I'm going to focus a lot more on the language support, and then thinking about how the language support class is going to interact with this one. Because on my stuff, it's going to be different. So like maybe I shouldn't even translate the stuff that they did. I think that the main thing that I'm trying to achieve from the stuff that they have already is just the like initial setup of the editor, like the functionality, the basic functionality, like coloring, setting brackets, indentation, stuff like that. And also the tabs. So I should focus on the tabs more. I think after I have this simple layout for the code editor, I'm just gonna do the tabs, and then I'm gonna test to see from the file editor's perspective if it has the components in the way that I'm thinking about it. So the main things that I have to do is these tabs here, the file editor stuff, like the text editor, and this GUI element here, which I think I'm probably gonna translate into a pop-up instead of doing the way that they did there. So I'm probably just gonna copy the final. I think I'm gonna do initially the same way that they did it by copying the class, and then I'm gonna make it inherit from a pop-up instead of, I think it inherits from a VBox container or something like this. Just see if I can put it like overlaying this stuff here, and then I can just show the pop-up whenever there's a thing there. So here they don't close after you. Not sure if there's a shortcut to close. And the problem with doing the object class is like what happens when you have. But I think it doesn't matter because I can use the function on the object. Like inside of the function that creates the setting, I can call the get class function, and then I create a mapping internally. Just pass the value to set, and to get I just get from the hash, or do the same stuff that they're doing there. Just call the get function. I think that the stuff that I was thinking about is the property. So maybe there's an easier way as well to do this. So the thing I'm not really sure is whether or not is always going to be the case that the set editor settings are going to be used to update the values of variables inside of classes. So if this is the case, then I think what I can do, like I'm thinking about the structure of the function. I think I'm just gonna pass the macro or the function from the editor settings inside of the object. Then inside of this is what I'm thinking is like what is gonna be the arguments of the function, and I think that's one of the arguments should be probably the variable, the string name of the variable, either the string name of the variable or the property info. So I think I should follow the same pattern from the bind methods function. Yeah, but actually, now that I think about it, this might be the reason why they didn't do like this, because of the order in which things are gonna happen. So this might be an issue. Because if you do it from the object class, then maybe the moment that's gonna initialize the value doesn't have the variables. But I think I could put like I could make it decoupled anyway. So maybe there's not a big issue. So like, instead of making based on the property or anything like that, I just put it on the hash in the same way that's, or just call the function the same way that they are doing now. Like here, they're just calling the function from the object. So I can call this function as well. Just like create the macro that is a wrapper from the object, but define on the object the function instead of defining on the singleton. And then for the definition, I can do the same thing that they do here. Let's see this. And here they're caching on this class here, and then they're setting here. Is this strong? So it's gonna be false by default. So it doesn't set on the object. This is kind of always the concern as well. That's like, because I always assume that people have a valid reason for doing this, and they created the editor, the engine, so that they know. Like maybe they encounter some problems, and that's the reason why they decided to do like this. Like who knows? So that's kind of the thing that makes me hesitant on implementing this. But I think this one is gonna set directly. And then the false here is gonna set. Oh, this one is different. But this is for the shortcuts. It's not for the. Actually, no, I'm not really sure. I think it's for both. Yeah, so when it is a shortcut, it's gonna run through this. So it's gonna be here. It's probably gonna be this one. So it uses this thing here. Okay, just caching on the props of this class. Like the thing that I don't understand is that if it does interfere with the metadata of nodes, to have the settings like this, why not create another hash on the node, on each node? I guess like that's the thing that I was talking about, that you would force every node to have an extra hash map even if it doesn't use settings. So for that reason would be better. But I think like it's not a big deal, because if it's not gonna use, it's just gonna be an empty hash map. Just probably not gonna take a lot of memory. I think it makes it a lot easier to do everything, and a lot more reliable as well, because like the functionality is bounded to each node. So the names of the settings are just the paths through the variables. So the question is like, how can I clarify whether or not the settings are always used to update? I guess you're just going manually over a couple of them. There's always going to be a value, I think, instead of a. There's always going to be a member variable of a class or a singleton, I think, the values here. So it must be based on a state. So, I don't know. But it's because I'm searching the exact thing, I think. Display scale, I think there already. But the thing, it's easier to search for the path, I think, to find on the code, which is gonna be like interface and so I think the names here are not exactly the same as the ones that they have on the code. Yeah. Maybe editor down. Or it should be something else, sure. Interface editor. I'll be right back. I think I understand the reason why use the singleton. And it's because if I put everything on the object class, then it's going to require to have a direct connection between the nodes that are gonna set the settings. So, and I think this is the case here for the code editor on the way that they did it there. So the script editor or script text editor is going to set the setting, but then the other class is going to use the setting. So like it couples the functionality. But there might be a way to, because the main reason why I started thinking about this in the first place is to ensure the name, like a standard on the name. So for that reason, I think that might be, I can create a function on the object class that gets the path. I think I'm gonna leave it like this for setting and getting the settings, but I can create functions on the. So maybe I should create two functions to get and set settings paths. So something like this. Because then I can use these functions from the object to set and get the settings. They're always gonna have the same path. The thing that I need to know is whether or not they always use the settings to update the value of a variable member variable of a class, and I think that probably yes, because otherwise it's like it wouldn't make sense to have the setting. Or maybe for singletons it's kind of weird, and this is here it might be weird as well. So the value of the setting. And depending what kind of, it's gonna be a variant always, I think, just based on the way that it is. Yeah, it's gonna be a variant because of the functions on the settings. But I think that the problem with this is also the composition thing. So you should probably just leave it like this and just like use the paths as a string because it's the easiest thing to do now. I just use these paths here. Because the issue is the way that you're gonna display the settings. I'm gonna search for the editor settings here. This is probably gonna be the. It's definitely the shortcuts. This is definitely the thing that creates the components here for the settings. Like this whole thing here. And I think this is the option that is going to be for the settings. This thing here. So it's just gonna be based on the signal that this thing connects to. And it's gonna call the function with these arguments. So it's gonna be this. So this is gonna open the settings dialog. So since there are no signals connected to this, and the functionality is gonna be here, it's gonna be on the inspector probably. Or maybe it could be like inside of the class as well. Also, it's gonna be on the input of the class. I'm trying to find the place that creates the GUI. So obviously it's gonna be this one that creates the dialog there. So it's probably here. I'm just trying to understand how it works. So I can understand how they build the options there on the thing. Because I think the main reason for not creating, like coupling the name of the setting on the object class is because of the way that it's going to display on the settings GUI. Because you might want to have the option to put different settings on different categories. So like if I do the name based on the object and based on the type of the class and the function and the uh, variable of the class, then I'm gonna have to create another abstraction, like another function or something like that, to translate the name into something else if I want on the GUI. And then obviously if I do it in another way, which is basically the way that they are doing, which is just the paths, then it becomes easier to do whatever you want because you create the names of the strings thinking about how you want to display them in sections on the GUI. That's the main difference, I think. Let's run this again. I'm gonna write down the names of this. I'm think I'm just gonna end up doing based on the name, just easier. It is kind of annoying. Because then I'm gonna have to remember. I guess like the has yeah, I'm hesitant to do it this way because I don't know how the overall the final thing is gonna look like. So eventually I'm probably gonna do the settings component as well. But the thing is like the way that the framework that I'm building, like the structure of the things that the way that I'm building is more generic. So it's not for one thing. So like if I do it this way that they are doing now and I put by sections, then it's gonna force me to do the design of the settings in the same way each time that I have each class. So I guess I have to clarify the way that they build the settings to see, to understand more how it works. To see if I'm gonna be able to like do it in a different way. I think I can do it in a different way anyway. I can go over based on the yeah, but the thing is like kind of forces you to remember the pattern for each class. So maybe it is better to create the functions on the object class and then create another abstraction if needed to build other gear components in case you want to change the way that the setting should be like another class. So it's just gonna think about the way to do the class. I think I should probably do it based on the name of the class. So create a function on the object that makes up the string based on the class type and the variable. That's what I was gonna do here. Oh yeah, so I was gonna so it's not working now. So I think it's because I don't have the dockable layouts on the thing. I'm not pretty sure actually. It's probably because I didn't set. I didn't call the function, I think. And the thing is, like, doing this way also allows you to compose. So like you can have only one setting for a font size, for example, and then use that setting on multiple different places. So I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm not gonna. I think I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm just gonna copy. So if this one works, I'm just gonna copy the strings and then settle for this. Or maybe in the future I think about this more. So I'm gonna finish this. So I think I'm gonna stop streaming because I'm gonna have to do one by one. I'm gonna have to see the value. Yeah, this is gonna be. But I think that there isn't any way around this. I'm just gonna have to like go on the editor, get value by value, then set on the function. Maybe actually the way that I'm thinking about doing that, it doesn't make a lot of sense because of this thing. I guess I'm gonna continue doing like this, but I could probably put other functions here to create settings that are not, because I think like I'm thinking how can I reuse the most amount of things, obviously. So I guess I can create another function there, just puts like generic settings or like do things in a different instead of separating everything class by class, I can make settings based on like font size, stuff like that. And then I just reuse the same ones for all the other classes. So I have to spend more time. I think I have to spend time on the editor looking at one, like each value that they have there, and then thinking about which ones are more generic and which ones are going to be specific to classes. Then create the functions, just copy all the values into the functions, set the values. Then after that, I can continue on the other one. Oh, this should be before the query layout, I think. Hmm. Might be because of the caching. I'm gonna look into the file there. Alright, here. Yeah. The obvious thing I can do is just, I think what is happening is that I don't understand very well like why they create the config. But obviously it's because they're gonna do like a different thing depending whether or not the config was initialized. So it probably has to do with the values there that they are checking instead of the config that I didn't find on the file. So like for the project that I have here, I'm like using those values, but they're probably use some other, like in some situations, but they are not saving the, so like I don't understand how it saves here because it's saving this singleton as a resource into the path there, I think. This path here, and then after it loads from this. Uh, so I guess when you have a resource class, you can just pass the class through the resource saver save, which is very useful to know. Didn't know that before. So this is just gonna be the class instance. But then, like, what about the values? That's the thing. So I think that they are not saving the values. And then obviously I can create a function that is just gonna go over the props that the class has to save the values on the settings file and then get the values when I load here. But I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it. The problem that is happening here is that I'm building the scene from C++. So I think that this is the problem. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the problem. So when I set the scenes here and I set the values on the settings singleton, it's going to set and it's going to work, but then the scene is going to run on a different runtime because it's going to run based on the sync file. So this just saves the scene to the sync file, and then the moment the application is going to run, it's going to load the scene from the sync file, and then when it loads the scene from the sync file, it doesn't have the information of what was cached on this BM settings singleton because it's not saving on the settings file. So the moment the application runs is as if it doesn't have the settings, even though I'm setting here because it's a different situation. So if I want to solve this, I can change the BM settings class, should save the information here of the settings, but then it's going to be kind of annoying because I have to think about like how I'm going to translate, because I also don't know very well why they decided to they use this variant container to put the values, I think, on the hash. I'm pretty sure that this is the hash map that contains the settings, but then the value is this variant container that I have here. And it has these extra values here. So like I can't put on this thing here because this is not variant, so it's not gonna allow me to save on the resource file. So I would have to translate this into a variant or some other way. And obviously I could translate just through the variant here. But then there's other like considerations of whether or not this is the best approach or there's a better way to do this. Or maybe there's a better way to do the whole thing, or so that's what I'm trying to think about now. And maybe making it based on the layout could be a way. I just realized here it doesn't matter like this. You should put this inside of the function there. But actually, I think it is working, which is interesting. I guess because it's, when I set the theme, it's gonna cache the theme on this node, so it does work. So I'm not really sure. I think I'm gonna stop streaming now, and I'm gonna think about this upstream, because I'm not really sure what to do. Now the hard part is the design, like I said before. It's not really implementing is very easy, I think. But I'm just concerned about the structure of the overall thing and the approach that I'm taking here. Not sure if it's best. I think to solve this is kind of the way that I was thinking about is probably not gonna be that hard. It's just gonna be a little bit annoying to save everything on this resource file. But I'm not really sure if it's the best approach because of this other stuff here. Because I keep thinking that like there's probably like a much better way to go about this. I think I need to spend more time I need to spend more time clarifying how they. But I kind of already know like from first principles I think that the GUI has to be decoupled. I think it's better for the GUI to be decoupled because it has to be something that I guess I can always create like different classes, but like the path has to be decoupled on the GUI. So like I can create an abstraction from I can set the path on a standard way for the settings internally. Then the moment I create the GUI classes should change the settings of the whole thing. Then I create an extra abstraction that takes the default paths into whatever layout I want the settings customization to have. I think that yeah, that's the polarity, the range. On one side you have like flexibility for being able to organize the settings in any way possible, and the other side you have the standards so that you make sure that there's a lower chance for setting getting the wrong values. And I think that somewhere along the gradient it's kind of bad to make a shift more towards the standards approach because it forces you to couple the logic of setting and getting the values for the nodes. So it becomes harder to. It's the same problem with signals. Like if I put the functionality on the node, then you have to either traverse the whole tree or create the global object. And they created a global object, which is the singleton. Allows you to put stairs and getters from different nodes on different trees, different parts of the tree. So it centralizes more. But then you lose the flexibility on the pattern of the paths that make up all the values on the signal, which are like kind of like URLs or tree paths. And the other thing is the way that I'm building this scene. Because I think that this range is going to affect the way that I'm building this scene. Because it changes the strategy to use here, I think. Like if I make it based on the nodes, then I don't need this stuff here, I think. Because I can make it on the object. Like if I put the function on the object class, let's say, I would be able to get the values from the object and set the values from the object as well. So like I don't need to put the logic. It would depend on each node, the way that they're going to use the settings. But then the downside is that it couples everything. Because if you have one node, one part of the tree, it wants to use the same setting as the other one. Yeah. There's also this thing like, because you can have generic settings that are used by multiple different nodes. So if I make it based on nodes, then it forces me to repeat the setting, which doesn't make sense. Maybe the best way is to put it on the dockable layout. I usually, obviously, based on the way that things work, it's always going to be like this. And then probably the most optimal solution is going to be somewhere in the middle. That depends on the context of the situation. And that's what I'm trying to find now. What is going to be the... And I do think that I have to fix this first before continuing with the other class. So I think I'm going to stop streaming now. I was going to look into the... That's the best way to solve is to think about like what is the best approach when it comes to this structure of everything. Like, I think I need to think about the design first, the design of the way that I'm gonna build these things. And whether or not it makes sense to use this singleton. The thing is that I think for the shortcuts it does make sense, so I'm probably gonna use it anyway. Hmm. And if it's setting here, why doesn't it cache though? So I guess it doesn't cache this values. Or it's because it's not gonna be on the object, it's gonna be on the settings class. That's why. It's on the prompts here. It's now that I think about it, it's kind of weird actually. Like, how does it work? If you have the question I have to answer is how does it work when you update a setting? And because you're still gonna have, like for example here, you're still gonna have the definition of the value inside the constructor of the node. So if you override this value on the editor settings GUI, what happens? And I think that like the most obvious answer now is that it's gonna change something on the project settings, I think. And then the project settings overrides whatever value you would put here. But it's not very clear to me how to test this. That's the thing. Because I can change the value obviously on the editor, but then like where do I put the breakpoints on the constructor? Kind of doesn't make sense. As I can copy the string and then steal from both sides. Yeah, I think that is something that I didn't pay attention there. The way is working because it is caching here, so it's probably something that I erased on when I moved, and that's the reason why it's not working. Because if it was based on the macro, then it should stats regardless. You should put it on the file. I'm pretty sure that the one that I have there doesn't. Maybe because of this. No, it's the same. Oh, I want to test. So last thing that I'm gonna test, you should put the save, call the save function on some other spots. This might be because of the way that, like, if he's only gonna run the destructor after he saves the thing, then it's not gonna save. Might be this. Actually, just this. This one I know it works, but actually I'm not really sure. 'Cause this one doesn't rely on saving before. So I'm gonna put here and see what. Not sure if it's because of this. Hmm. I can make sure that whether or not it is because of this by calling outside of the thing as well. So I can call, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna call I, somewhere here or right after I set the settings. I'm probably gonna stop streaming regardless and just think about this off stream. I forgot to run, I think. No, I did run. So I'm gonna try this last thing, and then if it doesn't work. And the thing is that I'm not initializing, I'm initializing on here. I guess I can, yeah, so after I set this thing actually, I don't know why I didn't think about this. So I'm gonna move this to there. I need to see on the file as well, if it's gonna save. Yeah, I need to see, no, I don't need to run the thing, just see the file. It doesn't save on the file, it's not gonna work on this thing. Yeah, and I guess it was running because it's printing twice there, so probably didn't work. So it must be something that I did, I think, differently, or is some other thing. Because I am using the same macro basically, which is sad. But it might be that it's caching because of some other reason. It might be on the set initial value. Because the other thing I can test is to comment out the one of the functions or comment out functions on the settings just to it's gonna stop caching or yeah. But then I would have to delete them from the file. It might be annoying. I'm gonna stop streaming now and I'm gonna think about this off stream. I think that there is like for the current way that I'm thinking about doing or I'm trying to do here, there is a straightforward way to solve this. It's just to cache the information on the singleton, cache the information on the sing file or the resource file, and then when I load, update the state of the settings based on whatever is on the resource file. But the bigger problem is that I'm not really sure if this is the best way to do it. I keep thinking that there probably is an easier way to do this, like a better way to do it. And I think it's probably along the lines of with the object there. Creating a function on the object class and then making it based on the object. I set the values on the object. Maybe I can instantiate. I think I'm gonna try to do it like this, but I'm gonna try off stream because I'm already tired. So probably next time if I succeed, I'm gonna show. Actually, regardless of what happens, I'm gonna show what I did. But basically, the way that I'm thinking about now is to create a function on the singleton that uses the class DB. So I can have two options. One is I'm gonna add the functions on the object class. And then the biggest downside is there's two problems. One is the caching, and the other is the sing. Because if I have one setting, if I set the setting on the node, then it's gonna be coupled to the node, and then the node might be used. But actually, it would be coupled to the instance of the object, so maybe it doesn't matter. I think it's not that big a deal. Then add function on singleton that uses class DB to set the value. So like I can, yeah, but it wouldn't be the same because it wouldn't set on the object. It would set based on the type. I have to spend a lot more time thinking about this. And I think I have to do this before I continue to implement the editor stuff because the editor is going to use a lot of settings. So I'm gonna solve this first. If I can't, if it takes too long and I can't find a better approach, I'm just gonna do the easiest way possible and just override stuff there and manually copy the names. But I'm gonna spend some time thinking about a better approach first. Then after I solve this, I'm gonna continue. I'm just gonna continue copying incrementally from the editor class to the code editor, and until I get to like the base of what I have there, and then I'm gonna spend a lot more time. I think once I have the base, I'm gonna finish the other classes. Then after I finish the other classes, I'm gonna go back to this class to think about like how to make it work with the code completion for different languages and other stuff like parsing, linting, stuff like that. But I think I'm just gonna try to finish the initial part first. Yeah, so next time that I stream, I'm probably either gonna explain what I did, or I'm gonna continue to try to do it, and I'm definitely gonna continue to finish this file editor. So next time I'm just gonna continue to implement the file editor. So see you then.